Okay, so today we're just going to be looking at the cell structure of animal and plant cells. And today we're going to be looking at what we call the general cell structure. So, the general cell structure means that many cells look like these cells, whether it's the case of an animal cell or a plant cell, and they have many of the same organelles or cell parts that we'll be talking about today. And that goes for the most animal and most plant cells. We're going to start with the animal cell. And what you'll see today is that actually all of the cell organelles in an animal cell are also found in a plant cell. Okay, so in a way, a plant cell is almost more specialized than an animal cell. Okay, so we're going to look here at the animal cell first, as I said. And what we want to draw here is just a simple circle. And this circle structure here is it can change shape, so it can change shape slightly, and really the only thing that's really holding it together here, we have a cell membrane on the outside, okay, and that's the outer layer. Whoopsie. So we have cell structure, or cell membrane, as I'm saying, and the cell membrane here provides protection. It provides support, and it is what controls what enters and leaves that cell. Now, on the inside, then we have got this nucleus. And the nucleus is where you will find the chromosomes. Okay, so all of us in our cells have chromosomes. In a standard cell, we have got 46 chromosomes, and in sex cells, there are 23 chromosomes, so half the chromosome number. You'll also expect to find a few other things, like you may find a small vacuole. So some animal cells have a small vacuole, but many animal cells actually don't have a small vacuole, so we don't draw in any vacuole normally. Okay, what we could draw here is a few dots, and these dots here represent another cell structure that's very small. It's actually produced in the nucleus and released from the nucleus, and this is called a ribosome. So what I'm going to do now, don't know have I got the accuracy with this, but I want to try and point to one of those dots, and I want to call it a ribosome. Now, a ribosome is really important in a cell because what it does is it makes proteins. Okay, so remember, like when you look at a human being, really what you're seeing is mostly protein. So these ribosomes are working really hard to produce various types of proteins that we need in our body. So, for example, they're producing a protein we call an enzymes. They're producing a protein we call keratin, which is found in our hair and our nails. So these are being made all the time. Another very important organelle that you need to know at leaving cert level would be what we call in mitochondria. Now, these mitochondria, we can draw them in as little ovals, and when you draw them in as well, you want to try to get like a little pattern on the inside. Hold on now. That's not really drawing out very well for me. So you have this sort of loop pattern. And it's like infolding. Okay, that'll do. And that will do as well. Okay, and they are called mitochondria. Now, mitochondria, as you might know, they are the powerhouses of our cells. So they are actually producing something we call um, ATP, which is something we'll be studying later on in the course, but actually is just basically energy. Okay, so mitochondria, what they do for us is they produce energy. And just looking through here, there's only one real, I suppose, thing that we have forgotten to mention here. And if I point here to the white space, that's where I find it. And actually, this is just a liquid. Okay, and this liquid is what we call cytoplasm. Cytoplasm is um, more than 90% water, and it contains many dissolved substances. So the kind of dissolved substances that you'd expect to find inside here would be things like salt. You'd expect to find glucose. You'd expect to find oxygen, carbon dioxide. You'd also expect to find something called urea, so UREA, A, which sounds an awful lot like urine, because urea is actually released from the cell as a waste and sent to the bladder via the blood. Um, Rather, it's sent to the kidneys first, but it's then processed into urine. Okay, so there's a number of different things you find inside in the cytoplasm. Okay, now on the right of this, you can see here that I have got the different cell organelles mentioned. So if you're looking at my dodgy spellings here, you can see here that the spellings here in small print. Okay, so we have all the things different things here labeled for the animal cell. The next thing we want to do here is the plant cell. Plant cells are a little bit sturdier than our animal cell, okay, and that's because they tend to have this sort of very rigid brick-like shape. Now you'll know this from junior cert level, but this brick-like shape here is really caused by the cell wall on the outside. Okay, on the inside we still have this cell membrane. So actually, it's something that, as I said, all these cell organelles we find in an animal cell are also found here in a plant cell. But you might notice here that the plant cell actually has a few extra things that are not found inside the animal cell. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to label these for myself. So, as I said here, we have the cell wall. The cell wall is something that provides protection to the plant cell. So again, like I suppose an important thing to say about this is that in a human you would have a skeleton that would maintain and allow you to stay upright, but for plant cells they don't have that. What they do have is they have very strong plant cells, and at leaving cert level you need to know that there's a cement layer in between these plant cells called the lamella. Okay, we'll be looking at this later on. And this creates a very rigid structure that allows, very large plants to exist, for example, trees. Okay. Anyways, on the inside here, we have, and when you're labeling this, guys, you have to be really careful to try to get your arrow pointing directly on top of the organelle. So this is our cell membrane. And the cell membrane has exactly the same function as it would have in a animal cell. It provides support. It allows substances to enter and exit that cell. So the substances entering and exiting a plant cell might be, for example, carbon dioxide might be coming in because photosynthesis might be taking place inside in this plant cell, and oxygen might actually be coming out of this plant cell as a waste gas. Okay, don't forget, the next thing you have at the center of this is you've got the nucleus. And again, we're just drawing in a dark circle to represent that nucleus. This nucleus is actually, I suppose, in the same way as a animal cell, it contains the chromosomes, which contain the DNA, which allow organisms to, reproduce and live and a way a species exists from one generation to the next. Okay. The next thing I'm going to draw in here is a very large vacuole. Now, the vacuole is actually a very important structure here in the plant cell because what it does is it pushes out against that cell membrane, and that pushing out effect here of the cell membrane actually uh, basically makes it rigid. Okay, like a vacuole here is full of liquid, so it's full of something called cell sap. That would include lots of water, lots of sugars. It's actually a temporary store of water and food in a plant cell, and they need that temporary store, remember, because they have to actually store their own food and make their own food. So the pushing of this vacuole here against this cell membrane actually provides a pressure which basically allows it to stay rigid. Now you might notice this when a plant has not been watered for a few days, it tends to shrivel up, shrink, and that's because the vacuole here is after losing a lot of water, and the cell in general is after losing a lot of water, and it tends to shrink in. And if that shrinking has happened for too long, it might actually die. So the vacuole there, its main function is to provide it puts pressure on the cell membrane, providing support overall to the structure of the cell. Now, the next thing we have to draw here again is our mitochondria. So that's very common again. So mitochondria, so we're drawing these little ovals. And again, the squiggly circle or squiggly lines inside the mitochondria. And these squiggly lines, I don't know that I mentioned, but that actually represents infolding. These there's lots of folds in a mitochondria, and the folds actually, the more folds, generally, the more energy that these little organelles can produce. Oh, I'm not just spelling that wrong. So you want to have we'll say a mitochondria which has got loads of which has loads of infolding. Okay, that's mitochondria. So we also have to do our ribosomes. So don't forget your little dots. So I suppose it's very easy to miss the parts in a plant cell because it has, I suppose, all the animal cell ones and a few extra ones. It's very easy to miss it. So I suppose just have to take care and just make sure you've got everything. Okay, my line here is not perfect now. I want to draw to one of these dots. I might just draw another dot there next to it. Okay. Right, and what we're doing now again is, as I said, is we're writing a ribosome. And a ribosome, same function as they would have in an animal cell. They are producing for us some protein. Right, so that is cell membrane, vacuole, mitochondria, ribosome, nucleus. I've drawn in the cell wall and the large vacuole, and then there's one other part here that we have to mention. Actually, I haven't mentioned the cytoplasm again, so don't forget the white space. Most of the white space is liquid, and that is cytoplasm. Actually, most of of any cell is actually water based. That's why they say humans are mostly made of water. So coming back here, the one part I have to draw in, and this one, it would be great if you had a green pen with you, because what we want to do is we want to draw in again oval structures. You can kind of highlight them a little bit, and these oval structures here are your chloroplasts. Okay, and chloroplasts, you might know an awful lot about these guys. These chloroplasts, there tends to be a lot of them, and these chloroplasts, what they do is they are there for photosynthesis. Okay, so they contain a pigment. A pigment is like a color, and that color is green. That pigment is chlorophyll, and chlorophyll is essential in photosynthesis. So chloroplasts contain chlorophyll. And that is a fully complete diagram of an animal cell and a plant cell on the right. Okay, so again, in class, I'll provide all the functions for these. Actually, they should be available under the notes. So what you'll do is just practice drawing them and make sure that you're able to label all the different parts confidently. Okay, that's it for today.